Hello, my name is Rich. I'm an alcoholic. I have been in recovery for 28 years and 6 months. And I found addiction unscripted, and I want to tell my story from my youth until now. It's a long, winding story, which many times it is with people who are in recovery. The day I was born, hospital I was born in, there was terrific rain. Um, it's the early 60s, and the rain got into the generator and knocked out the power. I was born by candlelight, and taking me out, uh, they took me out with instruments, and as most know, the baby bruise easily. And once I was born, um, once I came out with the instruments, I had two black eyes on my face, and my dad made the comment, he is born a fighter. And it was meant as a joke, as a funny moment. But that statement probably has been more true throughout my life than anything. My early childhood, up until I was about 7.5 years old, was very good. Um, at age 7, I lost my father to a car accident. We were very close. I, for a long time, I was told how he died, but I was not given details. And the fact that me and my father were very close, and I was unable to share my grief or understand or know exactly what happened, haunted me for years. At age 11, I started drinking. I was seeing a family friend, and a lot of times when he would take her out, we would go out with her too. We would go to some very nice restaurants, and he was a very extreme alcoholic, nice man, but he was an alcoholic, and he was an enabler. He enabled me to think that drinking was acceptable, and in the early 70s, it was much more acceptable even to be drunk than it is nowadays. I realize that a certain part of the population think it's fine to go out and get wasted. My thinking has changed from the time I started my recovery. At about 11 years old, I started being able to try different drinks. Didn't necessarily like it, but the idea of being an adult at that age, and I was kind of the man of the house. I was the only male in the house. Um, my mom was keeping alcohol in the house, and she was not tracking how much was in there, and I would occasionally take a beer or some wine or something just because, and with my unresolved grief, when I felt lousy, having a drink of alcohol seemed to make me not think about it all the time. And I thought about it all the time as a kid, wondering where I was going to end up, what I was going to do. I had no one really to guide me, to mentor me. And I think nowadays people are much more aware of that. Um, by the time I hit high school, my mom had remarried, moved into a new community, which was the the area was 6 times the size of my small town. The population was 3 times the size. So, being a small town kid, and being somewhat introverted, it was very hard for me to make friends my last 2 years of school. And so I didn't feel like it fit in, and I also um, started drinking more, and it became more available because at the time drinking age was 18, so I had seniors in high school that were able to get me alcohol, and even after high school, I was able to buy alcohol in party stores. Just be, you know, at that time I had a baby face. A lot of times, whoever was running the register, they would just let me have the booze, and so I felt like I could do anything with the booze, and that was a dangerous proposition for me at the time. I had many complicated uh, relationships with friends, with women. It was hard, young ladies. It was hard for me to maintain a relationship or to get one started because of what alcohol was doing to my person. So for about 8 years, I had all kinds of nutty things happen. I never got into a drunk or driving accident, though I drove many times while drinking. One time I went to a Christmas party. It's probably double snow coming down. I mean, complete snow flurry. And I blacked out on the way home. I have no idea how I made it home. Uh, in one piece, nothing wrong with the car. Um, and that was really what I did. I hung out with people, I got wasted, and for whatever reason, I thought it was fulfilling something that was empty inside of me. About the time my sister got married, um, she was younger than me, and that was kind of, for me, that was a little bit of a wake up call. She got married, and then shortly thereafter, she was pregnant. So she was probably pregnant before she got married and before she announced it. And so that was a shock to my system. She was younger than me, and I just kind of thought that me being the older one, I would be married and have kids first. And I went to, even at the wedding reception, I got really wasted. They brought the reception back to the groom's house, and I got so wasted that I passed out. Extremely embarrassing to me. Um, Something that I will never forget. or forgive myself for. Uh, Shortly thereafter, I started taking inventory of where I was at and what I was doing with myself. I was 26 at that time, and I'd had about a decade of drinking and not caring about anything that was going on, and just kind of mold people to get what I wanted, whether it be alcohol or whatever. Just kind of mindless living. And I decided that I wanted to get counseling, and it was something that I'd seen. And I consulted with one of my bosses, and he goes, "Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea, but," he goes, "it's got to be what you want." So I decided to check into it, and found out the state would help me pay for the counseling. I did it outpatient because I couldn't afford to take time off work. And so I embraced it. And shortly into embracing it, a few months after, an article came out by a local writer, Mitch Album, about a guy who was, I'm a big hockey fan, and one of my favorite players, probably my favorite player, Bob Probert, NHL heavyweight, toughest guy around. He had been for years struggling with alcoholism, and he finally did what I believe was his first interview, and he talked about his struggle. And his struggle went on beyond the article, but the article, when I first read it, struck me, and I go, if he can do this, I can do this. And so that was my motivation. And went into outpatient, and I started to learn different ways to learn how to cope with the withdrawal. My counselor was fantastic. In fact, I'm still friends with her 30 years later. She is retired, but every now and then it's that little reach out when I feel like I need a, a little bit of advice. My family still, unless I ask, they're not they're supportive of me, but they're not going to openly try to help me. And at this age, I really feel, and after this long a time recovery, I feel like I have to make my own way. I'm an adult, and I've been doing this. I've been feeling this way for quite some time. It's something that someone in recovery has to develop once they work all the steps and work through all the ways to cope with how society behaves around you, whether it be people who are sober, people who are dysfunctional in many, many ways. And my thing was always get back to where, try and get back to where I was. I won't be exactly the same, but the same values, integrity, honor, uh, be a good person, do the right things. And that's kind of what I did. Um, it's kind of like just do what I do, but do it in reverse. So instead of drinking, I would do other things, and I became kind of a workaholic. But at the outset of once I got it, I did want to get involved with people in recovery, in some way and be able to help someone else find ways to cope the way I did and use the things that are your strength or things that uplift you to help you achieve the things you want to. And that really sounds simple, but you have to work it. And when you're dealing with society, it's not always that easy, and people don't always understand your intentions or your motives, and they think you're trying to get over on, especially people who are still using. Uh, the article by Bob was motivation, and shortly after I started my recovery, few months after I started working at Little Caesars that owns the Red Wings that Bob Perper was employed by. The owner started his business in my hometown. Little Caesars was started in Garden City, and as a child, I remember Mr. Illich going door to door, putting uh, coupons on people's doors, which was not common back in the late 60s. So I'm working for Mr. Illich. I'm given an opportunity to be a manager and run shifts, and I learned a lot of my time there. It was a pretty good environment for the most part. Most people understood I've always been recover out loud long before uh, statements come out with a lot of the revolution that's happened in recent years. I always explain who I am, and sometimes I think it's cost me jobs because people think that your recovery is shaky. My recovery is not shaky. My recovery is on solid ground. And so, in working for Little Caesars, along the way, um, I was headed home from work one day, and a gal's car had died on her. It's not in a good area of Detroit, and so I wanted to do the right thing and be honorable and offered to help in any way I could. If the car won't start, you can sit in my car. And the gal was, you know, better in Detroit. She doesn't know who I am, so she's not going to trust me. And she goes, no, you can go on your way. Well, I wouldn't turn around and go, you know what? I can't do that. And so I pulled in the gas station. I went back up to her car and I said, you know what? I know you got a friend coming, but it's kind of a cold night, rainy November night, not snow or anything, but there's a certain chill. And I said, if it takes your friend a while, you can come sit in my car. I'm going to wait until your friend comes. That way, I know that you're good. I'm not just going to leave you here a couple hours freezing your butt off. And after a little bit, she came over to my car and she goes, the opera's still good. And I said, yeah, that's why I stayed here. I was right in front of the window at the gas station. So she knew, I had made everything safe so that she knew that I had honorable and decent intentions. And I happened to be wearing my Bob Prover jersey. And she goes, oh, so you're a fan? And I said, he's my favorite player. And she goes, why? And that why turned into a great invitation because she worked at a local bar, local club, and she said he comes in there all the time. She goes, she goes, I'm gonna give you my name. She goes, you come in there, and he happens to come in. I'll introduce you. So about a week goes. Her friend comes a couple hours later. I think I was there maybe 3 hours. Friend comes a couple hours later, and she works out. She's going home, and so about a week later, I decided to stop in the place where she worked, and not 5 seconds after she poured me a Coke, I had just turned around, and she and Bob walked in with Sheldon Kennedy, and she came out from behind the bar and she made sure I was introduced. And again, I was wearing my Bob Probert jersey, which was rather common back then. And she, you know, Bob just kind of gives me up and down, a big smirk on his face. He goes, "No kidding, you're my biggest fan." And he goes, "Well, we're going to be sitting over at the booth. Would you like to sit down with us?" I'm like, yeah. So we're sitting down, and he asked me, first thing he asked me, he goes, "Why are you such a fan?" I said, "Well, the obvious, of course, is the fighting you do and the way you play hockey. It's it was pretty common for anybody who was a hockey fan to not love the way he played. Played with reckless abandon. He was very skilled, and he could fight. There was not a man in the NHL they couldn't beat." But I said, "The article that you did about a year ago with Mitch Albom, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I've been recovering for about a year and a half. And it motivated me and proceeded to ask me my recovery date." That's when he told me his, which I thought was a little bit of a ball line, and because it was 1 year and 1 day after me, and he he said, he goes, "Doing a good thing for your life, and very encouraging, very motivating." He said, and he goes, "I'm going to be your clean time." Well, Bob was a big guy. There's no way that, and he was a professional hockey player, so if I ever got nice with him, there's no way I was going to be able to skate him. I wouldn't be allowed to do him. This is a guy who, even me being 40 years older than him, I knew I could never outdo my hero. But recovery time, that was something I could beat him at. And so that is my motivation every day to keep doing what I was doing before I met him. But also, I'm going to live my life clean and sober, and I'm beating Bob. And I know he's grinning at that in the great beyond. I was able to share my story. He passed away about 6 years ago. I never got to thank him for what he did for me. 8 years after I met him, I had hired him at an arena for a junior hockey team. He happened to be skating on the ice my first day. He remembered who I was. And I never really got to thinking. It was my first day. I saw him being overwhelmed with a lot of stuff. Um, 6 years ago, he passed away, and I was determined to get the funeral so I could share with his wife what he had done for me at that time 22 years ago, 22 years before. And knowing the way that she was about recovery and drugs and alcohol and the misuse of them, she gave me a big hug. And that was tremendous. Um, Shortly thereafter, I started volunteering with a grief group. I've been doing that for about 5 years, and I deal with. Yeah, I work mostly with kids 7 to 9 years old, which is about the age that I lost my dad. And I'm also able to hear stories as when the families come in about different issues that the families have, and there are a lot of grief issues, but also addiction issues, and I'm able to actually, I think, alleviate a little bit of the fears that kids have and help them feel like someone's there to listen to them. So that, in that regard, it's a great thing. Um, Recent years, I have actually been trying to get into a peer support position where I can actually get paid for helping people and supporting people and helping them find a way to cope with their addiction. And it's been difficult, partially in my state. The reason is you have a history of mental illness, which I do have, but it's been so long I no longer have the records for it, and it, it has to be paid through public health, and uh, it was, but the records no longer exist. So from that standpoint, I'm struggling to find the kind of work I know would benefit. That it's like hurdle upon hurdle, but I have the patience and the persistence that something will pop up. I also attend volunteer meetings for Save Our Youth Coalition, and administrators left, and I've offered my services to them. Uh, Now he's going to be going to school in order to maybe pump up my resume to be able to do what I want to do. I want I want the interaction with the people. I don't want to just create events. I want to reach out and touch people in a way that's meaningful, that changes their lives. And in many ways, it's hard to articulate that and to share that. Um, Hopefully, I have, and that'll be something that I can pass on and make the next generation more aware and more educated as to what things will do, what different things will do to you, and how you can live a better life and pursue better things. Because I don't think, even with the initiatives the government is doing, it's nearly enough. And I will always persist with that.